In this rare transmission, Julia Bell shares what the Pleiadians have shown her about the coming transformation of 2025, a year not of endings, but of full remembrance. This isn't prophecy. It's preparation. A vision of Earth no longer trapped in confusion, but aligned with its original frequency. The Pleiadians call it the reactivation of the living blueprint, and it begins now in the unseen, in the sacred. Julia brings this message not to create fear, but to awaken the builders of the new Earth, already living among us. If you felt different lately, you're not imagining it. You're already receiving the call. The year of the veil thins without warning. Julia explains that 2025 is not an event. It's a shift in how reality is held together. The veil between dimensions, long seen as symbolic, will begin to dissolve in real time. Not through catastrophe, but through subtle collapse. What once seemed like coincidence will now feel like confirmation. Synchronicities will become so frequent, they'll demand presence. This thinning won't be loud. It will arrive quietly, like a dream that bleeds into waking life. Julia shares that many will begin experiencing blending moments where timelines, people, or memories from different layers of consciousness seem to touch. What feels like glitch is actually interdimensional coherence, a soft merging of worlds. You won't need special training to feel it. You'll simply notice that the air feels different, that time bends around insight, and that what was hidden now stands in plain view. Julia reminds us, this thinning is not to escape Earth, but to awaken within it. Because only when the veil dissolves can the real work begin, rebuilding this world from the soul outward. Why Earth is being treated as a living library again. Julia reveals that Earth was never simply a planet. It was seated as a living library, a sacred archive of cosmic wisdom stored in physical form. For millennia, this original role was forgotten, buried beneath systems that disconnected humanity from Earth's intelligence. But now, the Pleiadians say that memory is returning. The planet is reawakening, and so are those who carry the keys to access her codes. This return isn't symbolic. It's energetic. Julia shares that in 2025, we'll begin feeling the Earth not just under our feet, but within our energy field, like a multidimensional book opening page by page. Ancient mountains, forests, and oceans will begin transmitting again, not through speech, but through vibration. And those tuned to these frequencies will become the new stewards of planetary memory. The Earth will speak through dreams, through intuition, through the stillness we've forgotten how to sit in. Julia explains that remembering Earth as a living library doesn't require permission, only presence. Because once we start listening, we'll realize that every stone holds a story, every tree a teaching, and every moment on this planet is part of a larger record being rewritten through us. The silence between heartbeats will guide the awakened. There's a stillness that exists between one heartbeat and the next, a space that most people never notice. But Julia explains that this is where the Pleiadians say cosmic guidance now enters. In 2025, the awakened will no longer be led by thought, impulse, or emotion. They'll be led by that quiet pulse of knowing, found only in the spaces we rarely inhabit. This shift requires a new kind of attention, not outward, but inward into the pause. Julia says many will begin to feel inner directions rise not through words, but through a sudden change in breath, a sense of magnetic pull, or a moment of stillness that speaks louder than noise ever could. This is not instinct. It is aligned navigation, the return of spiritual orientation through soul rhythm. You'll find that the quieter you become, the clearer the path becomes. This silence is not emptiness. It's a resonant signal from a deeper dimension, guiding those who are brave enough to follow without proof. Julia invites us to become masters of that space, not to fill it, but to listen to what's always been waiting to move through us. The birth of quantum emotion on Earth. In 2025, the way humans feel will evolve. Julia describes this as the emergence of quantum emotion, a new state of feeling that is not personal, but collective, not reactive, but responsive to higher frequencies. The Pleiadians share that emotion will become the next language of energy. Instead of explaining how we feel, we'll begin broadcasting it as pure signal. This doesn't mean emotional chaos. It means emotional intelligence that stretches beyond words. Julia explains that when one person heals grief, another may feel release. When joy is embodied, it ripples outward and softens rooms. These aren't mood swings, they are vibrational transmissions. Feelings will no longer be confined to the body. They will live in the field between people. This shift means we must become responsible for what we carry. Emotional hygiene will matter more than ever. Julia emphasizes that those who learn to feel with clarity rather than suppress or project will become stabilizers for their communities. Quantum emotion isn't about control. It's about coherence. And the more aligned your field becomes, the more your emotions will heal others just by existing. Consciousness will move in spirals, not lines. For too long, humanity has followed linear thinking. Step 1, Step 2, outcome. But Julia explains that the Pleiadians see time, thought, and creation as spirals, dynamic, repeating, and ever-expanding. In 2025, many will begin to experience this spiral awareness, where insights circle back with greater depth, and time folds rather than marches. This can feel like déjà vu, like reliving a lesson with new eyes, or realizing that something from the past is suddenly relevant in the present. Julia says this is not regression. It's refinement. You're not stuck. You're spiraling through layers of integration. And with each return, you carry more light, more awareness, more sovereignty. The spiral is the natural movement of the soul. It doesn't rush. It revisits with intention. Julia encourages embracing these loops as sacred design, not mistakes. Because in the spiral, nothing is wasted. Every turn is a deeper revelation. And when humanity stops forcing straight lines, we'll finally remember how creation truly flows. The architecture of thought will collapse internally first. Julia shares that the biggest structural collapse of 2025 won't be external. It will happen within the mind. The old architecture of thought, built on fear, comparison, hierarchy, and logic detached from soul, will begin to unravel. And while this may cause confusion at first, it will also create space for pure knowing to emerge. Many will feel like their usual thoughts no longer work. Old belief systems will feel hollow. Repetitive thinking will exhaust itself. Julia says this is not dysfunction. It's detox. The mind is shedding its false scaffolding so that new inner architecture can be built. One made of intuitive patterning, holographic awareness, and truth that is felt, not calculated. This doesn't mean we lose intelligence. It means we upgrade it. Julia explains that thought itself will become lighter, more fluid, more integrated with the heart. And those who resist this internal collapse will feel increasingly out of sync with reality. But those who surrender to it will find something extraordinary in the rubble, a mind that finally serves the soul. Humanity will speak in symbol before language. Julia explains that in the new earth, communication will no longer depend on vocabulary, but on symbolic transmission. This is not a regression, but a return to a more advanced, ancient way of sharing truth. The Pleiadians say that before we spoke with words, we spoke with symbols, emotions, tones, and shared patterns of consciousness, and that language is reactivating. You'll begin noticing this shift when you find that certain shapes, images, or even number sequences seem to speak to you. Julia calls this symbolic resonance. It bypasses logic and lands directly in the nervous system. You won't analyze the meaning, you'll simply understand. It's like your soul recognizes the symbol even before your mind has time to translate it. This return to symbolic intelligence doesn't mean language disappears. It means deeper meaning becomes intuitive. You'll feel truth before you speak it. You'll read energy instead of assumptions. And you'll realize that the most powerful messages are often those without words. Julia reminds us that symbols are the soul's alphabet, and Earth is already speaking in it again. Why inner maps replace outer paths? For generations, humanity has been taught to seek truth, purpose, success, love, all outside themselves. But Julia shares that 2025 marks the end of the seeker's journey. Not because there's nothing left to discover, but because the map has always been within. The new Earth doesn't ask you to search, it asks you to remember. You may begin to feel less drawn to spiritual teachers, courses, or systems you once relied on. Not out of disrespect, but because your soul is guiding you from inside. Julia says this is the age of inner cartography, the mapping of one's own knowing without needing validation from the outside world. And once activated, this map becomes impossible to ignore. This doesn't make you solitary, it makes you sovereign. You'll still connect, share, grow with others. But you'll no longer mistake connection for dependence. Julia teaches that the end of seeking is not a void, it's arrival. And once you recognize that what you were looking for has always been inside, you step into the world not as a student of life, but as a co-creator of it. Light will no longer come from above. The old paradigm taught us to look upward for light, for help, salvation, truth. But Julia reveals that in the Pleiadian vision of 2025, light no longer comes from above. It comes from within. Humanity begins to emit its own radiance, not as metaphor, but as measurable frequency. The soul no longer seeks light. It realizes it has always been the source. You'll feel this shift when others start responding to your presence, not your words. Your clarity will vibrate. Your decisions will carry resonance. Julia explains that the body becomes a lighthouse, encoded with memory, wisdom, and healing potential that radiates into every room. This isn't ego, it's alignment. It's what happens when inner coherence becomes your resting state. In the new Earth, leaders won't be followed, they'll be felt. The brightest ones won't be the loudest, but the most internally luminous. Julia encourages us to stop reaching up and start tuning in. Because once humanity accepts its own radiance, we'll no longer need permission to shine. We'll simply become the light we were waiting for. Energetic permission will replace verbal consent. In the coming years, relationships, decisions, and even spiritual boundaries will be governed less by conversation and more by energetic permission. Julia shares that the Pleiadians describe this shift as a move toward full-spectrum integrity. People will no longer need to explain themselves when their frequency already says yes or no. You'll begin to feel this when someone speaks one thing, but their energy says another. Their smile may agree, but their field resists. Or someone may say nothing, but you feel invited, safe, welcomed. Julia says this is not intuition, it's evolution. The body, the field, and the soul begin to act as one seamless signal, making misalignment immediately visible. This will revolutionize how we relate. There will be fewer misunderstandings, because what is real will become undeniable. Julia teaches that in the new Earth, we don't just respect boundaries, we feel them in real time. And the more honest we become with our energy, the more graceful life becomes. Because when permission is vibrational, truth doesn't need to be said. It simply is. The atmosphere will remember you. Julia shares something astonishing. The Pleiadians reveal that Earth's atmosphere is becoming conscious again. It will begin interacting with human frequency on a level unseen in recent history. This doesn't mean the air will speak in words, but in sensation, synchronicity, and resonance. You'll walk into a space and feel it respond to you. You'll notice that certain places recognize your energy because the field remembers who you are. This awakening isn't external, it's personal. Julia says that people will begin sensing their connection with specific lands, climates, and even skies, not based on memory, but on energetic lineage. Certain locations will trigger emotion for no logical reason. You're not imagining it. The air there may hold codes waiting for you to retrieve them. This change affects how we navigate the world. Travel won't just be about movement, it will become activation. You'll be drawn to places because your soul encoded something there long ago. Wendy reminds us that what we call atmosphere is more than weather. It's living intelligence, waiting to engage with a conscious humanity. In the new Earth, you won't just live in an environment, you'll be in conversation with it. Julia urges us to walk slower, breathe deeper, and treat space as a partner in evolution. Because when the Earth starts remembering you, your role here becomes undeniably sacred. The return of the living timeline. Linear time has been an illusion we agreed to for the sake of structure, but that agreement is ending. Julia reveals that the Pleiadians see 2025 as the moment the living timeline reactivates. This timeline doesn't move forward, it responds to your level of consciousness. It reshapes itself based on your alignment, not your calendar. You'll begin to notice this when outcomes start changing based on your emotional clarity rather than your plans. Julia describes it as reality recalculating around your state of being. When you shift, everything around you reorganizes. The future stops being something ahead of you. It becomes something you're already creating in real time. This means life becomes much more fluid and more sacred. Small moments become portals. Silence becomes strategy. The path won't be predictable, but it will be alive. Julia says this is not about control, it's about presence. The more present you are, the more the timeline reveals itself to you in perfect synchronicity. In the new Earth, planning gives way to sensing. Urgency dissolves into awareness, and your life becomes not a race, but a resonant unfolding. The living timeline doesn't demand effort. It requires coherence. And when you live in alignment, the future doesn't just happen to you, it meets you halfway. Stillness will replace urgency as the primary signal. The world has long taught us that motion equals progress. But Julia shares that the Pleiadians see stillness as the new compass, stillness as signal. In 2025, those who are in tune will no longer respond to urgency as truth. They'll know that real direction often rises not when you move, but when you stop moving. This shift will feel foreign at first. When you sit in stillness, you may feel guilt, pressure, or fear that you're falling behind. But Julia explains that these are echoes from the old world. The new Earth isn't moved by panic. It's activated by precision, and that precision is revealed only when we learn to honor the stillness within. Stillness is not passivity. It's awareness without interference. It's space where clarity can land. Julia says that decisions made from stillness are magnetic. They carry energy that reorganizes reality without force. The new leaders will be those who can hold that stillness without reaching for distraction or control. In this next phase, urgency will become noise, and stillness will become guidance. Julia reminds us that nothing can find you if you're always chasing. But when you become still, you become locatable to destiny. The soul speaks in stillness, and 2025 is the year we finally start listening. Your dreams will stop being yours alone. Dreams have always felt personal, an inner world with private symbols. But Julia reveals that in 2025, this boundary begins to dissolve. The Pleiadians say we're entering a time of shared dreaming, where certain dreams are not just yours, but part of a collective message unfolding across many souls at once. You may notice you and a friend have eerily similar dreams on the same night, or find yourself waking up with insights about someone you haven't spoken to in years. Julia explains that the dream space is becoming a shared grid of consciousness, a meeting place where energy moves faster than words. This doesn't mean invasion of privacy, it means expansion of guidance. As our consciousness upgrades, so does the bandwidth of communication. Dreams will no longer be just reflections, they'll be transmissions. Julia encourages you to start treating your dreams as community messages, symbols and visions that may carry medicine not just for you, but for others. In the new earth, the veil between sleeping and waking softens, and what you experience at night may start guiding your days. Julia reminds us that your soul has always traveled while your body sleeps. But now, that travel will carry purpose, instruction, and connection at a collective scale. The eyes will start speaking again. There is a reason why eyes are called the windows of the soul. But in recent decades, this window has fogged over with distraction, fear, and false connection. Julia shares that the Pleiadians see 2025 as the year where the eyes begin to speak again, not just as sensory tools, but as transmitters of energy and truth. A gaze will become more than visual. It will become spiritual dialogue. You'll begin to notice this in simple moments. Someone looks at you, and you feel seen beyond your role, beyond your history, even beyond your words. It won't be romantic, dramatic, or loud. It will be clear, reverent, and precise. Julia explains that when we are aligned with our soul, our eyes no longer reflect confusion, they project recognition. This kind of vision isn't about staring, it's about witnessing without expectation. The gaze of the new human does not invade, it invites. It acknowledges your presence as sacred. And when two people meet with that kind of awareness, a kind of silent transmission happens. Julia says these are not glances, they are activations. Eye to eye, soul to soul, timeline to timeline. In this new frequency, eye contact becomes a form of guidance. It tells you who feels safe, who is aligned, who is carrying signals your soul has been waiting for. This isn't about analyzing behavior. It's about resonating with being. Julia urges us to stop looking away, because the world we're entering will speak not through noise, but through knowing eyes. And most importantly, your eyes will begin reflecting your own light back to you, not the light you perform, but the light you embody. As your coherence grows, your gaze becomes stabilizing to others. You'll carry the presence that reminds people of who they are without saying a word. That's not magic. That's the return of soul seeing. And it begins with you looking honestly at yourself. Water will begin carrying soul codes. The Pleiadians have long said that water is not just an element, it's a living memory field. Julia shares that 2025 will mark a major activation in Earth's waters, where oceans, rivers, and even drinking water begin carrying encoded frequencies meant to awaken dormant aspects of the human soul. Water won't just hydrate the body, it will start healing the field. You may already sense this when bathing, swimming, or even standing in the rain. Julia explains that water is responding to consciousness again. Its crystalline structure mirrors your vibration, and now it's also beginning to transmit wisdom. With Mercury-like intelligence, water will carry emotional healing, ancestral remembrance, and even DNA recalibration codes. This doesn't require high ceremony or ritual. It requires presence. When you drink with awareness, when you immerse your body in water with intention, you create a two-way conversation. Julia says water becomes a messenger, an ancient one, and those who listen will start receiving insights, visions, even inner instructions that feel like they came from beyond space and time. In the new earth, water is not just a resource, it's a sacred medium. Julia urges us to honor it, speak to it, bless it, and listen through it. Whether it flows in a stream or stands still in a glass, water is waking up, and it remembers you. It remembers who you've been and carries hints of who you're becoming. As we move forward, even planetary bodies of water will begin activating. Certain lakes, oceans, and springs will attract people without explanation because the codes they hold are meant to be received now. Julia believes water will become one of the most intelligent and healing teachers on Earth, not by speaking louder, but by moving deeper. The new human won't arrive, it will emerge. There's a misconception in spiritual communities that the new human is someone we become someday, an evolved version waiting in the future. But Julia shares something different from the Pleiadians. The new human does not arrive, they emerge. They are not summoned from the sky or activated by force. They unfold from within the soul through awareness, embodiment, and remembrance. This emergence is not linear. It doesn't come after enough healing, enough study, or enough effort. It happens when we begin to release what we are not, when the masks, roles, and borrowed beliefs fall away, and the original frequency of your being becomes visible again. Julia explains that this emergence is not dramatic. It's cellular. It's sacred. It's inevitable once alignment takes root. You may already feel it, not as achievement, but as return. The way you speak has changed. The way you breathe is slower. The urgency to prove has faded. You are no longer addicted to reaction. You are anchored in response. Julia says these are signs of emergence. You're not stepping into a new identity. You're allowing your true template to lead. And what does this new human look like? Not perfect, not polished, but embodied, integrated, present, and clear. They carry awareness in their nervous system. They choose love without bypassing pain. They speak truth without apology, and they live in flow without chasing control. Julia shares that the world won't recognize them by appearance. It will feel their vibration. This emergence isn't rare. It's already happening quietly across the planet. In mothers, in healers, in builders, in artists, and in people who never considered themselves spiritual. Julia reminds us, you don't have to find the new human. You are already it beneath all that was never you. All you have to do now is stop hiding your light behind the illusion of becoming. You are not waiting, you are already building it. So many believe the new earth is something we wait for, a future arrival, a divine intervention. But Julia brings forward one of the Pleiadians' most powerful truths. You are not waiting for the new earth, you are already building it. Not through grand gestures, but through every small moment of alignment, choice, and clarity lived now. You build it when you choose stillness over reaction. When you speak from love, even in discomfort. When you say no to systems that dehumanize, and yes to values that restore dignity. Julia explains that each of these acts plants energetic structures that form the foundation of the future. It's not metaphor. It's literal frequency construction. This building isn't always visible. It may look like healing a relationship, changing how you speak to yourself, or choosing rest when the world screams for hustle. But these choices ripple. They bend timelines. Julia reminds us that the new earth doesn't come after the old world collapses. It emerges through your embodied resistance to unconscious living. The myth that someone else will do it is crumbling. The codes are not coming. They are already here, stored in your choices, your vision, your breath. Julia urges you to remember, your life is the blueprint. You are not preparing for the world to change. You are the signal of the change already in motion. And so the question is no longer, when will it come? The question is, are you living in a way that reflects the world you say you believe in? Because the new earth does not arrive all at once. It arrives through you, one brave moment at a time. And it's happening right now.